Hello, my name is Debbie Reynolds. They call me the Data Diva. Today I want to talk about MLATs, that is Mutual Legal Assistance Treaties and data privacy. MLATs are agreements amongst either one or more countries about how criminal evidence is transferred back and forth, especially for borderless crimes. So things like terrorism, money laundering, things like that. So these MLATs have been used for decades to transfer evidence, but in the digital age now, it is showing their age because it is always harder to transfer evidence when you're using a lot of older laws. One example is some of the requests and how they're being made happen on paper. So some of those requests in terms of letters or requests have to be in physical form, not necessarily like an email or electronic form. There was a recent case in the UK Supreme Court about MLATs where there was some data transferred for some terrorist suspects. The terrorist suspects were in the U.S. being detained, but there had been some information captured by law enforcement in the U.K., and the U.K. Transferred the data to the U.S. So typically in these MLAT agreements, there are certain kind of certain rules that they wouldn't follow, or certain types of crimes that they wouldn't transfer data for, or they may ask for something like, we don't want the death penalty applied to a person whom we sent this information to your country for. MLATs are, again, they've been used for many years. It's very slow, so sometimes it takes maybe even over 12 to 13 months sometimes to get the information. And this is one reason why the U.S. went with the Cloud Act, but the Cloud Act only applies to companies that are asked by the government to give information, so that the government can then have these agreements with other countries about the data transfer. This particular case, the reason why it's a big issue is because in 2018, the UK enacted their Data Privacy Act. And because of their Data Privacy Act, this transfer using a MLAT for this particular case was deemed that it should not have happened because it did infringe on the privacy right of the people who were in the UK that were now being detained in the US. So one important point to remember about MLATs and evidence transferring, there are tectonic changes in data privacy laws, and sometimes because other things, like for example, these MLATs preceded a lot of these privacy laws, have to really look very closely when you're doing these data transfers. Someone had asked me about the same question. The Privacy Shield would not apply to this because that's a EU to US transfer, and because the UK is now not part of the EU, it doesn't apply to that. And the Cloud Act, again, is only the government asking information of private companies, not necessarily government to government data transfers. So this is going to be interesting to see. Again, their data privacy laws are changing all over the world. The US currently has about 65 MLAT agreements for different countries. So I think we're going to see this issue come up again and again in the future. Thank you.